It's never too early nor too late to start. The only people that we've ever had lose money are the ones that didn't listen.
The biggest risk is no decision. Time out of the market is dangerous.
There was a decade there probably where it didn't move at all. Today, the land value of the house is 30 times what I paid for the house. Get in as quickly as you can and then build on that over time. Time's your greatest asset. Investing is like standing with one foot in boiling water and the other in ice. And then suddenly you'll go, it's worth what now? It's get rich slow. It's all about the time you're in it, and that's how you build wealth. Once you've seen it work and the wealth just starts to
Money creates more money as well.
you'd be surprised at how much wealth you could actually accumulate.
So if you had to pick one money move to get started today, what would that be? Welcome to Own It, the property podcast. Open chats about money, property, and everything in between. I'm Adam Schall, owner and founder of Locale Property Group. Today we're recording on the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people. Today we're talking money moves that matter, providing you insights and smart advice to help you getting onto the property ladder sooner, whether you're a first-time buyer or an investor. And who better to guide us than Wayne? Wayne's got over 4 decades of experience in the financial advisory space, and he's helped people turn financial goals into reality. Welcome, Wayne. Thank you for joining Own It, the property podcast. Over the last couple of decades, what are your biggest insights you'd like to share?
Good question. Thanks for inviting me in. It's interesting because I guess what I've learnt and I've seen apply so many times over the time I've been in my career is that it's never too early nor too late to start. And that might sound ironic, but the reason that never can start early enough is that, and you would know this from what happens with property prices, is that the returns compound.
Yeah.
So if you lose a year, it's the last year you're losing of that ownership, not the first.
Yeah.
So logically, that tells you the sooner you're in that market, and that doesn't matter what the market is, whether it's property, shares, whatever, sooner you're in it, the better. Conversely, there's no point in saying to yourself, oh, I've left it too late, because it's better late than not at all. As they say, you're better to light a candle than sit in the dark and cursing that you hadn't done something.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And there's a bit of sentiment at the moment, people seeing property prices, obviously they've increased dramatically, but we still have an immense undersupply. It's record undersupply. And, you know, me personally, I'll fall into that trap. So the property market's run. Is there any point getting in now? And absolutely, it's like get in. There's still an immense undersupply. There's still going to be a boom ahead of us.
Yep.
But yeah, what do you say to people that are thinking like that?
There have been times in any financial market, whether it's real estate or the share market, where you've languished for a long period of time, by and large, if you're talking about the price of the asset that you've acquired. But that sorts itself out over time. And you can go back, we keep charts in the office of all the different markets and show them to people going back 30 years as to what markets have done. And we say, we don't know when it's going to flatline or correct, and we don't know why, but we can tell you how often and roughly by how much. Yep. So the idea is you don't try and pick the top, you don't try and pick the bottom, you get in and hang in there and take your returns off the table when it's appropriate to do so. And the other thing you've got to remember is that, yeah, the prices might languish for a while, but you've got your yield, you've got your rent, or you've got your dividends, and that's going to keep coming in irrespective of the price of the asset. So once you've got it, at least you've got a running yield to service debt or live off or whatever the case may be. When the prices start to go the way you want them, then you can make decisions about whether you want to keep riding that journey or take your money off the table.
Absolutely. What do you see are the biggest barriers holding people back? Obviously, psychological, financial. What's holding most people back, you see?
In our space, I think one of the biggest problems we encounter is that people are scared to sort of commit themselves to a program. I mean, whether it involves buying property or it involves putting money into shares or adding to their super, they're sort of reluctant to make the commitment because, if I do that and then I can't maintain it, what happens there? So a lot of our time is spent in helping people understand, where the escape gaps are and where the safety valves are, so that they get an understanding for whether they're going to overcommit or put themselves in a position where they can't extricate themselves from it. The reality is that rarely happens. the only time people find themselves overexposed and having to unwind and get hurt in the process is where they've timed it very badly and overcommitted themselves from the outset. Yep. But that said, the banks are pretty good at putting checks and balances in place.
Correct.
I've had people say to me, can I afford it? And I go, you can pretty safely trust that if the bank says you can afford it, you can afford it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say the smartest thing is you've ever spent your money on?
There's three that I can't separate. My wife would like me to say marrying her was probably the smartest thing I spent money on.
That's the right answer.
It's always the right answer, except in fairness, I didn't spend the money, her dad did.
Nice.
Which that's not the way it happens these days. And I found that out through having 4 kids to get married. But back when I got married, father-in-law paid for it, which I'm very pleased about. But other than that, there have been 3 things I've done from a spending money standpoint that have stood me in good stead. The first was buying my own home. And at the time, we were paying probably 50% over the median house price to buy the house that I was renting off my dad at the time. And I was getting married and I thought, well, I've got to buy a home somewhere. Just started my own business. And so my borrowing capacity was not good. And so I said to Dan, let's sell me the house. And he said, sure. So why that was advantageous is that I just gave him what the bank lent me, which was about 2/3 of its value, because that was about all you could get out of a bank back in those days. And I just owed him the rest. It turned out to be the best thing I could have done, because today the land value of the house, which I still own, is 30 times what I paid for the house. And there was a decade there probably where it didn't move at all, but it's been a fantastic thing to have done, needless to say. The second one wasn't real estate. It was buying into the business that I'm now co-owner of. I wrote a 6-figure check, and we're talking the early 90s. Oh, wow. It was a serious amount of money. Biggest check proportionately that I've probably ever written. Yep. So, and literally it was writing a check back then, and I did that with shaking hand. They could hardly read the number on it. But that's also stood me in good stead, because that business today, I've probably increased that investment about 10 to 15 fold.
Amazing.
So I've got no complaints about having done that. I knew it was the right thing to do at the time, but gee, it was a big buy. And the third one was back in the property space. We were renting in South Perth, ironically from the guy we bought the business off, because he owned the premises in his super fund. Always a good thing to do. And we were paying rent to him. And in spite of it being mates' rates, because my business partner was his son-in-law, we worked out that we could actually buy in the area, we're talking South Perth, for the rent. And I've got to give my wife credit, even though we're the finance guys, she was the one who said, couldn't you buy something with the rent you're paying? The planets aligned, because the property next door was being renovated. And we asked the guy doing it, who was the owner, what are you going to do with it? He said, I'm thinking I'll sell it. So he said, well, don't put it on the market. We bought it, paid overs at the time, and sold it, I think it was less than a decade later, for over 3 times we were paying for it.
Oh, incredible.
So just sweet timing. Doesn't always happen that way, because I think it's still worth what they paid us 14 years on.
Yeah.
But we just happened to get in at the right time.
Absolutely.
So they've been the 3.
But it's a long game. Like you said, with your property, there was a decade there where there was no growth. And if you hang on to things long term, it's like any market, whether it's gold, whether it's stocks, whether it's crypto, they all have periods there where they don't perform. But any asset is a long game.
Absolutely.
Love the fact, obviously, invested in your own principal place of residence, then into yourself, into your business, and encouraging that, I guess, stimulates your income, which allows you to then buy more assets.
Exactly.
Which, again, you invested in property. So,
yep.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
It did work out well.
So what's the best piece of money advice you've ever received, and how did you follow that?
It's something that probably most of our listeners would have heard, and that's that if something looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
Sadly, I learned that through bitter experience. there have been times where we've seen something we thought, oh, wow, this is going to be awesome. And then it all goes very badly over time. And so what I've realized now is that that's very much a truism. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And I've also learned that flavor's fine, but there's nothing wrong with vanilla either.
For sure.
So if you're doing things the tried and tested way, and case in point's the way we approach advice for our clients now, we've long ago left behind trying to find something exotic to put into their portfolios or ramp it up, because it doesn't work more often than it does, and you're just better off to stick with things that have stood the test of time.
Safe, tried, tested.
Absolutely.
Me personally, I've obviously done the crypto thing, and whilst crypto's has performed for a lot of people, it's very volatile, and I got in and got out, and I probably lost half my hair in the process.
Yeah.
Did okay, but property over the long term is pretty hard to beat. But also within property, there's different markets. I remember there was a huge boom probably a decade ago up in the Pilbara, and it was heavily driven by rental returns, and we saw some volatility in prices there, and it obviously looked too good to be true because they were getting double-digit yields on those properties where, yes, it's great to chase a yield and make sure the yield's safe, but it needs to be in an area that is growing. Families want to move there. There's infrastructure in place. It's just generally a really great place to live. So I think you can't really go wrong in those.
No, it's interesting you mentioned the Pilbara, because it fascinates me that I can remember when, going back a little while, there was a couple of young guys that were brothers. Yeah, and you probably can recall the story because they were everywhere in the media about how well they were doing in the Pilbara with properties, and they were just leveraging one off the other. And I'm looking at this going, this is a snapshot that if they're smart, they'll take the money off the table. And of course they didn't, and they ended up doing their shirt. It time and time again. And obviously, as you said, there are principles that apply to any form of investment. And if you're buying real estate in an area like the Pilbara, you know that the prices are directly linked to the price of the iron ore and the commodities that they're pulling out of the ground.
Absolutely.
And they go in cycles, and guess what the property's going to do?
Correct.
And if you reckon residential real estate is a roller coaster,
Yeah.
things in those regional mining towns, they're up and down like the proverbial yo-yo.
Absolutely. And I guess from a national perspective, people see Perth as property prices directly correlated to commodities, but we are seeing our economy just completely diversifying. And the migration, obviously we're seeing it firsthand with our homes business. The amount of people moving from Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, the lifestyle we offer, the incomes that we could generate, the affordability still, housing is still very affordable. And then literally the most amount of sunshine in a year. It's a pretty great place to live. So I do see that economy obviously stabilizing, and obviously we had that really tough trot and whenever it was to 14 to 20. But I don't see us having.
I think I know. Melbourne's an interesting place when you talk about from an investment perspective, because I lived in Melbourne for 2 years and was so happy to move back to Perth. There's only two things that are that Melbourne's worth living in for. One's the football, the other's their restaurant and dining outs. And
Incredible, yeah.
That other than that, you can keep the weather.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we obviously went over there recently looking at properties because obviously the property clock over there and the market's in a challenging position, and there are opportunities over there. But like you said, cafes, restaurants, nightlife, very eclectic, a lot of cultural things there.
Yeah.
But if you like sunshine and open spaces and things like that, probably not your place. And I think us West Australians are a bit privileged with what we have. And then we go over there and we're like, this is cold and concretey. It's on my butt.
Well, yeah, but it's bizarre because it seems to be a well-kept secret. It's like, who doesn't like sunshine and like best practices? Like,
exactly. I think they're finding out and they're starting to migrate over. And just from a client moving over perspective, we see a lot of it. I have a lot of migration, more than I've ever seen. But even in a recruitment perspective, our business has grown from 2 people to 45 people in 2 years. And the amount of recruitment we've been doing and the amount of people that are in applying from Victoria is incredible. I feel like literally every ad we have, there's multiple candidates, good candidates that are qualified and skilled that are moving to WA.
No, well, my business wouldn't run if it wasn't for people on 457, what they used to call a 457, is most of the staff I've employed over the last 15 years have been overseas pilots coming in.
Absolutely.
Thank God.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a necessity. Obviously, we have a huge deficit in supply of labor, especially the construction industry. We have a huge deficit. We're getting a lot of Filipino workers coming in, which is incredible to help the construction industry, but also from the UK and all various areas to help support that construction industry to get the trade base to where it needs to be and supporting services for that industry. But it also creates more of it exacerbates the issue of housing supply. So it's like it's a chicken and egg thing where we're
Very much is.
so.
But we do have to solve the problem because the undersupply is bad and getting worse, which, of course, from the point of view of someone considering investing in real estate, it's music to your ears.
Absolutely smart.
And yeah.
So let's talk smart money management. What are some smart moves people can make, everyday people that can help them get ahead?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. We talk to clients about understanding the difference between good debt and bad debt.
Yep.
And usually when we raise that issue, people say, what are you talking about? And quite simply, what we're referring to as good debt is the stuff you're getting a tax deduction on. So business-related debt or investment-related debt. But essentially, that's how it works. If you're borrowing money to generate income, the taxman lets you have a tax deduction for it. So we say if that's the good debt, then everything else that you spend money on, cars, houses, holidays, that's bad debt. So what we want to do is understand the difference between the two, have both, separate them, and then use the good debt to help you pay off the bad debt. And to do that, we talk about a concept called debt recycling. So you use the equity that you've created in your home to borrow money to invest. And then with the tax breaks and the income that investment generates, you use that money to accelerate the rate you're paying back the bad debt, creating more equity, which gives you the opportunity to then add to the investment side of it. And over time, you get to the point where the only debt you have left is good debt, and the bad debt's all gone. As an extension of that, because we get people to understand that concept, we explain to them that because debt is flexible these days, and it wasn't back when I first started, so we used to do things to deliberately put people into a circumstance where they had access to redrawing equity. Now everyone's got it. You've got your offset accounts, redraws, all of that. So we tell people, because you've got access to the equity that you've got in your home, every time you spend money, you're borrowing it. And they go, what? And I go, you book a holiday, where's the money coming from? And they go, out of my offset account. You go, right, so you borrowed it. And they go, oh yeah. So if you approach spending, whether it's going out for the sexy meal or booking the holiday or just going to Crown and putting it all on red, if you get used to the idea that every time you spend money that isn't for investment purposes, you're borrowing it, it's a very good mindset to apply to, do I really want that holiday or that fancy meal or the new outfit? Sure, do it if you want to, but as long as you approach it that, is it worth me borrowing money to do this? It's the right way to deal with your money.
It's a level of accountability as well. Like if you're not getting ahead or you're not in the financial position of where you want to be, looking inward and looking at situations in that perspective, certainly going to keep you accountable.
Well, that raises a good point, because we talk to people about the concept of paying yourself first. It's one of the first things that I was ever taught to understand. It's like if we said, okay, if you took a 10% pay cut, but in 7 years' time, we'll give you the equivalent of a year's wages in a lump sum, you'd go, that sounds like a good deal. But yet none of us are prepared to do it voluntarily to ourselves. And it's easy. You just take the first tenth of what you're earning, put it aside and forget you ever got paid it, put that into an investment, even if it was only a bank account, not the best way, but at least you're doing
something.
And then before you know it, you've suddenly got the equivalent of a year's worth of wages accumulated somewhere.
Correct.
And the beauty of doing that is that it's very motivating. And once you've seen it work, you're inclined to then go, oh, I'll double down on this.
Absolutely.
And the wealth just starts to
Money
accumulate.
creates more money as well. So the more
Absolutely
you've
it
got
does.
there, the more it compounds. Look, as people's of lives or their income increases, it's very easy to increase your lifestyle and the toys that come with it as well. And we do see that a lot. And I've been experienced that as well. I was younger at some point and started earning some good money and bought some things that I probably shouldn't have. Big thing we see is people go out, they earn a really good income. They may be in mining, whatever that may be. Go get a new Land Cruiser or a Hilux on a 7, 8, 9% interest loan, and they're paying again a bad debt, and they're also paying it on a so post-tax dollars, and it's a depreciating asset. So that car they drove out is depreciating probably faster than the car goes 0 to 100, and they're losing money and they're paying it with after-tax money, and then they go buy an investment property or buy their principal place of residence, and they can't. So then there's the opportunity cost because they've held themselves back completely by buying that Land Cruiser.
Yeah, it's the absolute double whammy.
Yeah.
It's funny. We see that people's ability to accumulate wealth does not directly correlate to their earning capacity.
No.
The people who've done well, so we deal with a lot of people that are heading into retirement, clearly. And the ones who've set themselves up well, more often than not, are people who didn't earn a significant amount of money. They just hung on to some of it.
Yep.
And we also find that people tend to increase their expenditure just slightly ahead of their increased income. They always tend to stretch themselves with the toys or whatever the case may be. So the premise of paying yourself first is one of the best lessons that people can learn, and the earlier they learn it, the better off they are.
For sure. My father, he's in his 70s, and Yaz is my partner's grandfather, also now nudging 80. Both of them had the exact same saying: it's not what you earn, it's what you save. And that's so relevant. Whatever you can save, scrap a little bit to the side, then reinvest that money instead of upskilling or sort of enhancing your lifestyle, you will get ahead.
And the very important thing for people to understand is the moment you're in a position to borrow money to invest, and they say, can I afford to do it? And the answer is, if you look at what you get as a yield out of the investment and the tax that you're going to save by doing it, you're going to find by and large, if you've set it up the right way, that this investment's going to pay for itself. It's actually not going to impinge on your cash flow. And they go, how's that work? So you run the numbers for them and you go, so really the only limit on whether or not we can do it is, okay, we've got to make sure that if anything happens to you down the track and your earning capacity is compromised, you can still afford to do what we've done. So we play a role in that. But the other thing is that if the bank's going to lend you the money, then as soon as you're in a position to take that money out of the equity you've created and put it into an investment, that's going to wash its own face.
Yep.
And you just let it happen.
Absolutely. It's pretty confronting the first time I saw that. We had a graph and it showed just a standard sort of property, 4x2 property in a high growth sort of normal standard area. And it broke down how much the tenant was going to pay for that property, how much the ATO was going to pay for that property, and how much the actual owner of the property was paying for the property.
Brilliant.
And I think on a standard sort of house and land package these days, it's probably like 20% that the owner ended up paying after all associated costs. And that's that property in 30 years. So you're paying, someone said to you, I'll give you a property now at today's median house price and you're going to pay 20% for it, you jump at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But literally every single person has that opportunity. So it's just a way of thinking.
Yeah, and that's literally it. It's the old story. You don't know what you don't know.
Yep, correct. So if you had to pick one money move to get started today, what would that be?
I think we've probably just touched on it. We talked about paying yourself first. So no matter which way you're going to do it, from today, you should look at your personal circumstances and figure out what money you can commit to putting aside for the future. Now, if that's out of cash flow or it's out of equity or it's out of both, it doesn't matter, but work out, and you probably need professional assistance with it unless you're pretty savvy. And you and I'd both be out of a job if the average person could do this stuff for themselves.
For sure.
So go and get some advice, find out what you can do, and then start doing it.
Great.
and the sooner the better.
And what are some of the, obviously you work with clients, and what are some of the things that they can trim out of their sort of daily spending that you're seeing people overspending in today's society?
Well, the smashed avocado on toast and the new acrylic nails every other week and whatever. It staggers me. I guess when you do what we do for a living, where it's all about wealth accumulation, and you just your antenna tend to pick up when you see evidence of people just wasting their money. And you go, okay, that's fine. Everyone's got to have their little luxuries in life that make them feel good about themselves. But you need to assess your priorities, and it's fine to do those things if you know you can afford them. But in my personal experience, it seems to be they're inversely proportional, and the people who can afford it least tend to spend the most money on it. And whether it's to make themselves feel good about themselves or not, I don't know. But you just think, my goodness, if you could just take the money that you're wasting on that and put it aside, you'd be surprised at how much wealth you could actually accumulate.
Absolutely.
The classic example that we used to always use was smoking. Now, of course,
Yep.
we've gone from when I started in the workforce where I smoked, my wife smoked. 7 out of 8 people did. Now it's 1 person in 8 and falling.
Yep.
And we used to say, and cigarettes weren't a fraction of what they cost now.
Yeah.
We used to say, if you stop smoking and just put that money aside and invest it in something that, not even taking any undue risk, this is what you'd have in 10 years' time. And they're like, sorry, what?
100%. But there's 2 choices. And it's that understanding of going, if that's what you want to do and you want to spend your money on that, that's totally okay. But then you can't complain that you're not getting financially ahead. You got 2 choices. You can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So it's compromise.
Exactly.
Everything. And delayed gratification is a big one as well. If you want to be living your life like that and have, coffees every day and working less, that's totally okay. But maybe delay the gratification, work hard, save, get yourself into that position and do it in 5 to 10 years.
It's interesting that delayed gratification, which is a brilliant concept, but it seems to be a prevailing attitude these days that instant gratification takes too long.
Yep.
And it just fascinates me that people can't think, well, if I just forego that, and the coffee is a classic. Now, when you have a financial advisor's mindset, you look at things and go, like $5 and $6 twice a day for coffee. It's like in a year you could buy a decent coffee machine.
Yep.
And they're costing you less than $1. And then you can bank the rest.
Correct.
That's how I approach it. So we've got a nice coffee machine in the office. And people say to me, should we go out for coffee? I said, no, I'll shout you a coffee and a Tim Tam in my office. Instead of you paying $20 for the 2 of us, it'll cost $3 and it's in my office. So it's just one example of using your money sensibly instead of thinking, oh, well, I'll just do it because I can.
So what's the biggest money saving habits that first home buyers can apply to get ahead?
The problem that first home buyers have at the minute is that, as we've acknowledged, at the moment, property prices are moving at such a rate that it's difficult for them to accumulate a deposit because the requirement for the deposit is going up faster than they can save it unless they're very diligent about doing so. So what that means is, going back to the things we were just talking about, they've really got to look at where they're spending money and how they're spending it and make some tough calls on, if they're serious about getting into the market, then the smashed avocado on toast maybe becomes a luxury item instead of every weekend with our friends, and make decisions that are in their best interest. We're not going to dinner and the movies. We're going to order in a pizza and watch Netflix. Sure, have your luxury expenditure and reward yourself occasionally, but decide your priorities. If you want to get into the market as quickly as you can, and we've already discussed the benefits of doing so, then is it really that big a price to pay to forego some of the things that you would have otherwise been doing, or curtail them a bit in favor of saving? And you find that with just little adjustments here and there, you can find yourself accumulating a sufficient amount to go and put a deposit down on a home. And again, and I'm sure you would tell your clients this, the first home you buy isn't going to be your forever home.
Correct.
You just need to get into the market. And the sooner you're there, the better. Once you're on it, you're going to ride the merry-go-round.
Absolutely. Speed is key. And look, Keystart's amazing. Obviously, that's a lender, a government-backed lender that helps a lot of West Aussies into the market, and you can get in with a 2% deposit. And we see clients sort of not jump at the opportunity, I guess. They're like, interest rate's a little bit higher than what it would be. I'm going to save my money. By the time they save their money for that 5% deposit, they've, the property prices have gone up 25, 30, 50, $100,000 in that time.
Exactly.
Get into the market. Yes, your interest rate's not ideal, but by the time you hand your keys over on that property, within 12 months, you can probably refinance some property, get the lower interest rate. You've accumulated $50,000 to $200,000 in equity on that property. Get in, and speed's everything. And don't turn your nose up at an interest rate, or potentially don't turn your nose up in a location going, that's not exactly where I want to live. You're probably going to be in that property for 2 years, 3 years, and then move on to the next anyway. So speed, jumping in, and looking at almost as a business decision as well. Whilst it is your first home and it's aspirational and you want it to be beautiful and it's going to be special, and there's nothing more special about getting into your own home and having your friends and family over for that first time, still need to have that business mindset to it as well, going, it's not my forever home, I'm in it, and there's always an opportunity to upsize down the track.
It's still an investment. You've got to approach it from an investment perspective. And in reality, for most of us, our home is, in the Australian tax system, the best investment we ever make, because to this point, and the jury's out on that one, of course, with them looking for ways to raise revenue. But as we sit here and talk about it, capital gains on your own principal place of residence are tax-free.
It's incredible.
And for most of us, that's a pretty sweet deal. So you've got to make the most of that opportunity and be in that, for young buyers, be in that space as soon as you can.
Yep.
And then capitalise on it.
There's not too many opportunities in the world, or if not, there's literally none in the world where you can go out, accumulate an asset, live in the asset, and then also accumulate a whole lot of wealth from that asset and pay zero tax on it. So it's pretty incredible. Obviously, you're paying tax to pay down your mortgage, but you get a tax-free bonus at the end of it.
And it's one of the best returns that most of us will ever get out of anything we ever put our money into. So it does not pay to not participate.
Correct.
I mean, yes, you can make a case for renting and putting your money into investment property instead of a home.
Yep.
Because then you've got the tax man helping you pay for it, but he still wants his cut at the other end of the deal. So does it work better? Not necessarily, but it is an option.
It's an option, and it's a lifestyle thing. And rent vesting is a big one. We're seeing more and more of that. And we encourage that. If people are sitting out going, I'm going to save my deposit for a couple more years because I want to be in an area that's closer to the city or the coast, we strongly encourage rent vest. We live in an area where you'd love to live. Often the areas where they love to live, like in an apartment or something in Scarborough, versus what they pay for it versus what the rental returns are, you're probably paying less in rent than what that would be to purchase that property.
Exactly. Yep.
You get very little capital growth on some of those types of properties as well. And it's like, cool, live where you love to live your lifestyle, but at least get into the market in a location that is emerging and up and coming, and you're going to get some sort of return out of it. So it's better than sitting and saving.
Yeah, I've got an example. I hope they don't end up listening to this podcast, because they'll know who I'm talking about. But their family, and they decided they wanted to move to a suburb that was more aligned to where they want their kids to go to school. A typical, one of the primary decisions in where you decide to live. But the mistake they made was selling and renting. And they, with 20/20 hindsight, were out of the market in Perth for probably the worst time they could have probably done it, and have ended up going backwards by virtue of the fact that what the equity they ended up with in the home they've just bought is less than they would have had if they'd have rolled straight from the property they sold into another one, or even stayed where they were.
Yep.
And yes, they're now living in the area they wanted to live in, not in the home they want to live in, because they couldn't borrow the money to do so. And they got caught out by being out of the market. So the answer in that is, don't be out of the market. That applies for my clients in our space of broader investment advice,
Of course.
as well as it does in real estate, because if you're on the sidelines, you can get hurt really badly. But if you're in the market, whatever the market's doing, you're participating in it.
Correct. Yeah, and there's always this fear of I might get into the market, I might time it wrong, I might buy the wrong property, and the biggest fear should be out of market. For me personally, obviously we've been around and we've seen it, and I've overthought things myself and sat out of the market and missed opportunities countless times and kicked myself. The biggest risk is no decision. Literally is the worst thing you can do in any market. It's literally get into the market and hold long term. But I'm the same sort of situation. I've got someone that I know very closely and been sitting out of the market trying to find the perfect property and put offers in, withdrawn offers, not quite right. It's been over 5 years, so probably $500,000 in tax-free money that they've probably left on the table by not making a decision. So yeah, time out of the market is dangerous.
Yeah, in investment management space, they talk about it's time in the market, not timing the market. And they've proved statistically that people who chase returns, moving to last year's hot sector, actually do worse than the people who are just stuck fat.
Correct. Sit in, lock in, wait. People buying, selling. Obviously, they're giving a little bit away every time with agent fees. Obviously, capital gains tax if it's not their principal place of residence, and they're trying to chase that hot spot where it's like just buy really good assets in over a long period of time, and they will have returns. Obviously, Western Australia, we had a rough trot from 14 or 13 to 20, but we caught it all back up. So over that, the 15-year period, we're back to where we needed to be. Yes, it was a bit ugly and none of us enjoyed it. But if we hung in there, we basically got the same outcome as everyone else in Australia over a long period of time. It just was a bit emotional.
And it tends to do that. We'd say to people that investing is like standing with one foot in boiling water and the other in ice.
Yeah.
On the average, you'll be comfortable.
Yeah.
And that applies to any investment market you're in, is there'll be long periods of time where you go, what have I done? I'm not making any money. And then suddenly you'll go, it's worth what now? Yeah. And the story is, and we tell every client this, it's get rich slow.
Yep.
It's all about the time you're in it. So get in as soon as you can, put as much money into it as you can justify, and let it do its thing for as long as you possibly can. And that's how you build wealth.
I love it. So what's one of the worst money habits you see, and how would you tell people to avoid it?
Oh, you wouldn't believe some of the things that we encounter that it just beggars belief sometimes. The one we see often is people who come to us and they'll have money in the bank at a low interest rate, and they have hardcore credit card debt. And I see your incredulous look, but and these are, I've seen it from people that are well educated, doctors and people you'd think that would be a fundamental understanding, but they'll say to me, but if I take my savings and put it on the credit card and I need money in a hurry, how do I get it? And I say, it's called a cash advance. And they say, but don't I pay interest on that? And I'm like, hello, you're already paying that interest.
Yep.
But in the meantime, if you take the savings and put it on your credit card, you've gone from getting 2% on it to getting 20% on it, tax-free.
Yep.
And that's one. Another one is people always talk about, as soon as I've paid this house off or nearly paid it off, I'm going to build myself a new one. I'm going to move into that and I'm going to rent this one out. And you go, no. And they go, why? And you go, well, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with all the debt attached to the new house, and the one that you own that you're going to rent out, you're not getting any tax break on because it's got no debt on it.
Yep.
And they go, but I borrowed the money against this house. How the tax man works it is, it's not how you secured the debt, is what you do with it.
Yep.
And if you borrowed the money to build a new house, he knows that. He's not giving you a tax deduction just because it's attached to the house that you're now renting out. And that's a mistake people make all the time. So the answer is, you own that house, sell it, buy the new one you want to move into, then with the equity you've got, go out and buy the investment.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's the order in which people do things. There's a number of others. We've talked about people spending money frivolously, and that repeats itself. Sometimes people do it unwittingly. One that freaks me out all the time is these credit card rewards, and people get obsessed with them and don't realize that if they work out the fees and the interest, perhaps, that they're paying on their credit card, it outweighs the benefit of the points they're getting on their card. And it's like, if you actually do the math,
Yep.
you're better off to not have a credit card at all.
Just save the money and pay for that flight whenever you want to pay for
Yeah.
it.
And they go, but what if I want to pay for something on Visa? And I go, debit cards.
Mm.
You get the same benefits, but they're using your money, not the bank's. Therefore, you're not paying any interest or fees.
Love it.
Yeah. One that there's plenty, but they're classic examples.
So what smart money moves can people make today that will help them pay their mortgage off in 10 years' time?
There's quite a number. We've talked already about the sooner you have a look at well, we haven't used the B word, that big bad B word of budget. And everyone hates the word and hates the thought of budgeting, but really everyone needs to know what they're doing with their money.
Mm-hmm.
And it staggers me that when I ask people to provide me with one, because in order to make recommendations about what people should do with their money, we need to be able to demonstrate that they can afford to do it.
Yep.
So we have to get people to do a budget. Invariably, irrespective of their age or circumstances, the first time they've ever done a budget is when I've asked them to do it. And it freaks them out. They are just so confronted by the money they're wasting. They go, I didn't realize that. And we go, that's part of the reason we get you to do it. So suddenly, now that they've got a handle on how they're spending their money, they are in a position to reassess their priorities, find out the money that, because there's two categories of expenditure. There's the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. So for people to get ahead in a hurry, we say, go through your budget, put all the must-haves in one column, all the nice-to-haves in another column, and then scratch out all the nice-to-haves and stop doing them. And they're like, what? And you go, well, they're nice-to-haves. You want them, but you don't need them. All of this stuff's not negotiable. You've got to make your car payments. You've got to put fuel in it. You've got to service it. You've got to pay your utilities and so on. You've got to pay the doctor, all of that. But this stuff over here, the holidays and the hotels and the dinners out and the new outfits, yeah, sure, you want them. But if you're trying to get ahead, cut them down to the least you can live with and still feel good about life and put everything else aside to get yourself into investing for your future.
Nice.
Because at the end of the day, and we say this to people all the time, I've been doing this for a long time and I'm yet to meet the retiree who wishes they'd saved less.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Knowledge is power as well. Like you said, we get into a cycle. We're all busy. We're working. We go out. We do things. We spend things. And look, I'm victim of that. Luckily,
Yeah.
I'm engaged to an accountant. It's the money that comes in and out is just something we just don't track. And knowledge is power. Once you know what you're actually spending it on, you can start making some decisions.
Yeah, and it I guess because I'm dealing with this stuff on a daily basis, things that to me are second nature aren't known to the average person in the street because they've got little exposure to it and they don't understand it. I mean, an example is, and it rings true for the property market, but with the share market, because nobody ever freaks out about a property market correction. They just go, oh yeah, well, that happened. But when the share market does it, they freak out and they completely forget two things. One is that all that tells you is that somebody was prepared to sell that share for that price today. The company that they invested in is still doing what it was always doing and probably doing it very well. So if someone wanted to sell the share, it's because they wanted to do something else with the money, invest it in something else or put it in cash or whatever it was, but it says nothing about the underlying value of the asset that they were in. And the second thing is that they forget is that when a share is sold at a lower price, somebody else bought it. So what it means is ignore the noise and just take a long-term focus to things. People are prepared to do it with property, and thank God they are, but they never understand that the same rules apply to the share market. And the example I always use is to say, why is it that if you owned a house and it was identical to the neighbours and you thought it was worth $1 million and he put up a sign saying for sale by owner, 700,000, you wouldn't go, oh, I better sell mine before it drops to 600. You go, I'm going to go to the bank, see if they'll lend me the 700 because I'm buying it.
Correct.
That's a bargain.
Yeah.
When it happens in the share market, they think I better sell before it drops to 500.
Correct.
There's
If you're
no logic
investing
to it.
in blue chip, stable companies, you're going to be fine. And even with the most disastrous situations like Qantas shares, they're in COVID,
Yeah.
they obviously the bottom fell out of them, and for obvious reasons because they'll all ground to a halt and sitting on the ground. But smart people got in there, they bought shares, and they hung on to them. And the world's always going to correct itself. We're going to have things,
Absolutely.
we're going to have serious situations, and that's probably the most extreme what we've probably experienced in our lifetime. But it bounced back. And people, like you said, some people sold it and some people bought. And the ones that bought saw opportunity. The one that sold had fear. And so old Warren Buffett's saying, when people are greedy, be fearful. When people are fearful, be greedy. So
And
jump in and see the opportunity for what it is.
and if we're going to listen to anyone, the Oracle of Omaha is one of those guys we should be listening to,
Absolutely.
because he's made an absolute fortune from just doing exactly that.
Being very level-headed and long-term view on everything.
Yeah. And he said they did not make any smart investment decisions. They just did the smart thing. And it's what we were talking about is get your money into the market as early as you can. And that goes back one step to starting a savings plan as quickly as you can. And once you've done it, just keep building off the back of that. The only people that we've ever had lose money are the ones that didn't listen to us.
Yep.
The ones, I mean, yes, sure, there've been things they've done that they've lost money on, but across the board, they've all made money except when, for whatever reasons, they did not accept our advice, took their money off the table, and then they go, oh, if I'd have listened to you, I'd have been so much better off. And you go, well, would you like me to say I told you so?
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much history behind it as well. And that's what we all get caught up on, what's happening today, and obviously tariffs and all sorts of things that are happening. And that's history. And we've seen it time and time again. If you look back decades, it's happened before. Pretty much every situation that we experience every day, whether it's good or bad, it's happened in the past. So just see what happens and look at history. It's a pretty good sign of what's going to happen in the future. It's not exactly, but look, over decades, it's a pretty smart way to think.
Yeah. And the way to be sure you're going to do okay, because as you said, it's pretty easy to look. There's indices for every market you can ever consider. So it's easy to look at it and go, well, if I'm there for long enough, this is what I'm going to earn, unless this is the first time in history that it doesn't do what it's always done. And that's almost inconceivable. Yeah. So if you say, well, if I'm there long enough, I know I'm going to get this outcome, then just make sure you're there long enough. So put yourself in a position where you're not going to have to take your money off the table involuntarily at the wrong time.
Correct.
And that's when people get hurt. They over leverage and find they're up against it, can't hold on to the asset, are forced to sell into a depressed market, take the haircut that sometimes they can never recover from. So the solution is to be in the market, make sure you can afford to do what you're doing, build on it as you go along, but never be in a position where somebody else is going to force you to have to get out of it at a time where you're going to pay for the price of doing it.
Correct. Emotional resilience is a big one. Obviously, we've been through a pretty tough time in WA in 14 to 20.
Yeah.
And I had multiple properties at that point, and they all took a bit of a haircut from a value point of view, but also a rental return point of view. And then there was a challenge when you struggled to get tenants at that point in time. You saw rental returns diminish, but you also saw quality of tenants diminish. And I had some pretty interesting situations, and I've had houses trash and all sorts of things. And you buckle up for the ride. And to be honest, even though one of my houses got completely trashed, there was a silver lining to it, and it was insured, and I had the appropriate insurance, and essentially got a renovation thanks to that person for trashing my house. So there was an upside to it, but the emotional challenges that come with that. But that's the importance of investing, is like almost writing yourself a note and going, I'm in this for the long haul.
Playing the long game.
You know, I'm in this, I'm going to batten down the hatches, and there's going to be times when I want to liquidate this asset. But there's also going to be times when I'm like, I can make no wrong decision, and I feel like God, because everything I'm touching is gold. So you can't, it comes with both. Like you said earlier, with one foot in boiling water, 1 foot in ice water, and
the average
is okay.
Yeah, well, as you said, and the benefit for you of that unfortunate experience was that it wasn't your only one. If it was your first, it probably would have given you the yips. But it comes back to diversifying, and the solution for people is the old saying: don't put all your eggs in one basket. Now that means all your wealth shouldn't just be in residential real estate, and it definitely shouldn't just be
Great.
in one spot. And you want to have different types of asset. If you, even in property, you want to own different types of property, geographically diversified as much as you can. And then there's the other places you can invest your money as well. So that, because we talked about, we always do a pie chart for clients of the different asset classes and say every person should have some of all of these things. All we got to do is work out what the ratios are for you, and then we just maintain them.
Correct.
It's as simple as that.
Love it. So how would you balance enjoying life and saving for the future?
It's interesting. We say to clients that what you should do is plan your life as if you're going to live to 100, but then live every day as if it could be your last, because one day it will be. So what does that mean? It means find the balance, and balance is a very appropriate word, because what you want to do is, there's no point in being the richest person in Karrakatta if you've lived on Vegemite sandwiches all your life.
For sure.
That makes no sense. Clearly, everyone understands that. But equally so, you don't want to end your days going woulda, coulda, shoulda. So find the balance. Find a lifestyle where you are living comfortably, but still taking from the money that you're bringing in and putting it aside for your future and maybe your family's future. There are people who take moral views that perhaps we shouldn't be doing it. I don't happen to subscribe to that. If I can give my children and grandchildren a help along the way, I'll be very happy to do so.
Absolutely.
That said, it's not my number one priority. If my wife and I end up doing the proverbial ski holiday and spend the kids' inheritance, we'll be very happy to do so. Point is, though, that we would not regret the amount of money that we've accumulated over our lives when we ultimately stop accumulating and start using it.
Correct.
So find that balance, put enough aside to where you know it's going to work for you, but you're still having a lifestyle that doesn't frustrate you on a daily basis, and then just maintain it.
Love it.
And every now and again, give yourselves a little treat.
If you could give your 20-year-old self a money tip, what would that be?
It's interesting. Obviously, there's a little bit of wisdom in hindsight there. And I often tell people that one of the things that makes me a good financial advisor is if you can outline a mistake that you can make with money. I've probably made it. I guess, and part of that aligns to the fact that, and I don't do client portfolios like this, but I literally am one of these people that if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. And I've tended to apply that sort of principle to the way I treat my money. Fortunately, I don't give that advice to clients. So I have done some things. We talked earlier, obviously, about the successes, but there have been some spectacular failures there along the way. And what it comes down to, if I could tell my 20-year-old self this, is that if, and we talked about it before, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Just find something that has been done before and you know it will work, and just do that. But more importantly, and it goes back to another thing we mentioned earlier, is that you can't start early enough. Even if, and this is important because my own personal perspective was I've been self-employed pretty much from the get-go, not from 20, but not from a lot older than that. And being self-employed, your income is in peaks and troughs. So what do? You tend to spend it when you've got it, and then you live very frugally when you don't have it. Exactly. Batten down the hatches. So the lesson that I would learn if I could wind the clock back is that no matter what you've got at the time, just keep putting some aside and just keep building it up. If I'd have done that from the get-go, my financial position would probably be significantly stronger than it is now, and I would not regret being in that position.
I love it. So if you could give one piece of financial advice to someone starting their property journey, what would that be?
I think we've probably already touched on it from a number of different standpoints, Adam, but get in as quickly as you can. And it's not about how good the property is, whether it's the one that you really want to own or live in or whatever the case may be. Being out of the market is potentially dangerous, and the sooner you're in it, the sooner you're participating in it. So figure out how you can get your deposit together as quickly as you can. The moment you are in a position to buy a property, no matter how it's funded and where it is, do it, and then just double down on that over time without overcommitting yourself, always giving yourself an exit strategy, but just get in early and then build on that over time. Time's your greatest asset.
Correct. And talk to people that understand how to get in as soon as possible as well, because there are perceptions and people talk at the barbecue and they get the advice from the uncle or whatever that may be, and it's you need to save a 5% deposit, you need to save a 20% deposit, and that's maybe what it was when they entered their market at that point in time, but it's exploring every single option. And there's opportunities like AI these days where you can literally ask AI, what are my best ways to get into the market? And I'm sure that it will spit out things like Keystart, talking to companies like us, talking to financial advisors. Asking questions, knowledge is power. The quicker you can get in and the quicker you can learn that advice, the quicker you can apply it.
Yeah, there's these shared equity schemes and all kinds of things at the moment. But the answer is this: as soon as you're in a position where you can have a piece of real estate with your name on it, you should be
Make
doing
it happen.
Absolutely.
No, I love it. Thank you so much. We get a lot of wealth creation clients that come to us and want to, I guess, unlock super or leverage their super for the better. What options do they have?
It's funny because people often say to me, I'd rather invest in real estate than super. And we get into a conversation about, well, super's not an investment in and of itself. It's just a tax trust.
Yep.
And you can invest in real estate in super. My super fund owns my office. It's a very smart thing to do. And a lot of people don't realize that their super can help them buy a property. So if they want a property, they can use their super to do it. Now, you can't do it with CBUS or any of the other retail options either, but you need a self-managed super fund. But if it is appropriate for you to do that, then you can use your super to buy a property. Now, the bad news is you can't get any benefit out of the property other than the returns on it because you can't, if it's a beach house or whatever, you can't use it. The only exception is business real property. So you can buy a premises and run your business out of it. But if you buy a rental property, whether it's a beach house or it's a commercial property or it's just a house in the suburbs, that's fine. Your super can be doing that as long as you or your relatives aren't using it. The other good news is that you can actually borrow money with your super. So if you go, I don't have enough in my super to buy a property, you go, well, that's fine. You just borrow. And while the borrowing ratios aren't as generous as they are for the person trying to buy their own home, they're still pretty generous. Now, is it a good idea? Maybe, maybe not, but definitely worth exploring because there are circumstances, particularly if you've got your own business and having a premises would be a good thing, then looking into the opportunity to use your super to buy property is something that you really need to do. Go and get professional advice on it and see if it works for you.
Nice. Love that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Wayne. It was a pleasure having you on board.
It's been my pleasure talking to you, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Own It, the Property Podcast. A special thank you to Wayne Leggett for sharing his decades of experience on money management and smart advice. If you found today's episode insightful or interesting, please subscribe or comment a like and share it with a mate. It really helps us get it out there. We'll see you next time for real chats on homes, property, money, and everything in between.